This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch or get 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture. Hello world, and welcome to another episode of the Cult Popture podcast, specifically film franchise Fortnights, where myself, AJ, and
myself,
Richard, we cover a different film franchise every fortnight. And I want to begin this episode, Richard, an episode that, while we haven't recorded it yet, obviously, it's almost assuredly going to be over 2 hours long. I'm going to assume if you've just discovered the Cult Popture podcast, you're probably not going to click on the over 2 hour long episode. Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to give a little... Yeah, it's fine. Watch a different one. Listen to a different one. The people who theoretically aren't hearing you say that. I do want to put out a little message to our current fan base. Because we have had maybe 4 or 5 messages sent to us or comments on videos or whatever over the last maybe month and a half, and they're all saying very similar things, Richard. They're saying something along the lines of, I can't believe you guys have under 1,000 subs, I can't believe you don't have 100,000 subs, that kind of thing. Like, more and more people are coming to us and being like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have more subs? I'm guessing it's because they think our content's good. What do you think?
Yeah, or maybe they just don't realize how subscribers work.
Yeah. Like, it's like every time you breathe, you get a sub.
No, they just think that it's a number that's, handed out by the YouTube gods based on how good your talent is.
Yeah, so I want to address this question of our small but loyal following and why we don't have more people listening.
It's because we're not very good.
Well, I think it's because part of it is being from New Zealand. We're not awake at the same time as the rest of the world, so
we're not
a lot of the time if we try to we're trying to get stuff out into the world, it's at 4 a.m. in America or whatever, something like that. But another reason is Reddit doesn't really like it when you post your own stuff, so we can't really resort to that very often. So what I want to say to you guys, everyone listening to this, if you're a fan, this is like if you've ever gone to church and you've listened to the pastor talk about tithes and offerings, this is going to be a very similar speech. If you're new here, you don't have to. All right, but if you're not new here, if you've been coming here for a while,
you have to.
What me and Richard would love you to do is to spread the word. I'm tentatively calling this hashtag join the cult. It's not necessarily a hashtag, it's just something to keep in mind. And what hashtag join the cult means is I want you, every person listening to this who listens to us fairly regularly, to tell 2 people about this podcast. Tell 2 people, hey, have you heard of Cult Popture? It's this podcast. If every one of our, say 200-ish regular listeners told 2 people, how many is that, Richard?
That's 100,000 subs.
That's it. So that's the key. So we're putting this up the top of the episode because I know that, you get to the point where we're like, well, go and like us on Facebook. And it's like, I don't listen to that in my favorite podcast, so why would you guys? So I get it. So I want to put this up the top to try and ask, to plead, to try and get you guys to spread the word. Word of mouth is the best marketing for a podcast. So hashtag join the cult. Hashtag, hey, have you heard about Cult Popture? Tell your friends about us, because we want to be as big as we think we are, as our inferiority complexes tell us we are, and as our YouTube commenters lament that we're not.
We want our subscriber count to match the size of our tummies.
We want our subscriber count to match not only the size of our tummies, but the size of our
hearts,
the amount of work that we put into each episode of this as well. So that'd be really cool if people could go and tell 2 friends about this podcast. That's all I wanted to say. Let's get into it, Captain Richard. Like
Captain Richard, reporting for duty. Except I don't have to report for duty because I am the captain. So anyway, this is a podcast where we watch a different film franchise every 2 weeks. And this week, because it is Halloween at the end of this month, we thought we would cover the spookiest franchise of all time. The aptly titled Halloween.
Oh my god!
Alright, so this franchise is 11 films long. Whoa.
Is that, how many times have we done 11?
This is the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Bit of up top random trivia, which we've been saving for the end, and I have got quite a lot of it.
But you've got more at the end. Okay.
I've definitely got more. So this started in 1978 with the film Halloween, directed by John Carpenter. Wow. And AJ, what is Halloween about?
So it's about this little kid named Michael Myers who one night he just decides to murder his sister, and then 15 years later, after he's been sent to a mental asylum, he escapes and heads back to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois, where he dons a creepy mask and sets out to murder a bunch of teenagers. The only survivor of his onslaught is a 16-year-old girl.
17, I believe.
Yeah, 17-year-old girl named Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who manages to more or less outwit, but not really. She just kind of survives Michael Myers, and then he is shot down by his own psychiatrist, one Dr. Samuel Loomis, and when they go and look off the balcony that they shot him off, Michael Myers has disappeared.
Yeah, and so this was Jamie Lee Curtis's first film role.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam Loomis, as well as played by Donald Pleasance, who you might recognise as Blofeld from You Only Live Twice.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond.
That's the
line.
Thing. Yep. So, obviously this film is a horror classic. And what would you say it is on Rotten Tomatoes?
See, this is an interesting question because its place in movie history would lead me to place it somewhere in like the high 80s, but I know that something like Friday the 13th has like 30%, so I actually have no idea. I don't even want to guess because I'm not basing it on anything.
Right, well, what would you guess?
Well, I would guess
you don't want to, but
maybe,
you have to.
Let's guess 78 after the year it came out in.
A good guess. But
you.
Wrong.
Oh.
No, it's 93%.
Well, that's really high.
Yeah. That's
higher than Friday the 13th, and definitely higher than Hellraiser. Is it higher than Nightmare on Elm Street?
I'm pretty sure it's higher than Nightmare, Friday, or Hellraiser you ever got.
Oh wow, there you go. That's interesting.
But yeah, this is considered, a classic. And what did you think of it?
I didn't like it. No, look, here's the thing. I think it's considered a classic because it was the first one. It was the first slasher film. It was the first serial killer kills off a bunch of teenagers.
The first slasher film. The first slasher film, as we learnt in Scream, was Peeping Tom, which was the first film to put you on the point of view of the killer.
Ah, okay, for sure. But this was the first big one where you get all the tropes from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for that reason it's got its place in history as a little more sacred. I didn't hate it. I thought that it's very slow burning. It's very oddly paced. there's a couple really odd like editing decisions in it, which I kind of liked at the same time. Like there's one part where Laurie's walking home from school and she looks up the street and sees Michael Myers standing like 20 feet away from her, just in behind a hedge, and it's kind of played as a jump scare, but also kind of not. And I was kind of conflicted by it because I was like, I don't like how unscary this kind of feels, that you just look up the street and it's, you know, it's the middle of the day, he's not hiding, she's seen what he looks like and doesn't really react like it's that scary, but then at the same time it's wonderfully unnerving. So, and maybe I guess that's probably what they were going for. I think maybe there's a great TV trope on tvtropes.com called Seinfeld Isn't Funny. Which is basically saying people don't find Seinfeld funny because you've heard all the jokes before, but those jokes were invented by Seinfeld. And so I wonder if with Halloween it's a bit of that like all the stuff I've seen done before in later movies that was improved upon or like crafted better, and so you get the original and it's less effective, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that maybe it's more as well that you're desensitized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like there is still a lot to be said for I don't know, just like the mastery of the craft of filmmaking of John Carpenter.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, so this was made on a budget of $300,000, and they, like, when he went to the studio to pitch it, they were currently making a film with Laurence Olivier that cost $300,000 a day.
Right.
And so they were like, yeah, fuck, you can do it. And it's it made $47 million off that budget, and it's one of the most profitable films of all time in terms of investment versus I think the most profitable film of all time is The Blair Witch Project. No, Paranormal Activity.
Nice. Yeah.
But this is like 7th, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, no, there is, and I think it's similar in seeing so many sequels, and like something like this is clear in like the Gus Van Sant remake of Psycho, where it's like even if you're technically doing everything the same, there is something that those auteurs like John Carpenter and Alfred Hitchcock, they bring to it that elevate it. And it's hard to pinpoint exactly what that is, but it's even harder to fully replicate it.
It's like how The Lost World Jurassic Park will always be the second best Jurassic Park movie, because even though you could argue something like Jurassic World had a lot more classic and better ideas in it, The Lost World's still a Spielberg film, and a Spielberg film is going to be better than a Colin Trevorrow film.
Yeah. There's just something magical about it, and this was also like his third film. This was pre The Thing. Yep.
Which is real interesting because at one point Laurie is seen watching The Thing from another world on TV, and I thought it was just The Thing and that this came out after. And then I asked you, and you were like, "It's funny, you should ask." And so
they're watching The Thing from Another World, which John Carpenter remade 4 years after this came out. Between this and that, he made Escape from New York,
right?
Which is like, which was another one. So he had this like, you know, upward trajectory, because before this had done like Assault on Precinct 13.
The Thing is better than Halloween, like by a wide margin. And I think that's what shocked me about what I was expecting in terms of like the expertise of Halloween. I think I was expecting something like The Thing, and it's not. Okay. So maybe I was just let down or slightly disappointed. I don't know.
Another thing we talked about, the whole Seinfeld isn't funny, and you have this film originating a lot of tropes. This film, almost to like a parody level, has the virgin final girl.
Yeah, totally.
Where it's like all their friends like, come out, have sex, and sex up with us. That's a line from the film. And Laurie's like, no, I'm a virgin. I don't have sex because I'm a virgin. And that's like, it does feel really dated in the whole, like a little bit. Like we still see it in in films today that like the whole you can't have sex in a horror movie or you die thing, especially something like It Follows,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the whole what's it, like the pure virgin thing feels very dated. Would you agree?
Well, I would agree, but I would say as well that the disconnect in Halloween is that it's not for any reason other than thematic, other than like moralistic reasons. Like in It Follows, it's literally how the monster finds you is by having sex, when you have sex with someone. And then in something like The Cabin in the Woods, it goes without saying that that's so lampshade hanging that it's just like, yeah, it's a joke. But then even in Friday the 13th, which is probably out of the like classic late 70s 80s horrors that we've watched, Friday the 13th is the closest to Halloween in terms of its structure, because both are like a hulking lunatic going around murdering teenagers
With a mask.
Yeah, with a mask, exactly. But even in Friday the 13th, we understand that Jason Voorhees doesn't like sexual teenagers because they were doing that when he drowned. So it's like a anger, it's a revenge thing. Whereas Michael Myers doesn't really seem to care. It's almost coincidence that he, it's almost fate ordains it that if you're boning, then you're going to get murdered.
Yeah. Well, do you know that John Carpenter's actually come out and said it's not like a virtue play,
Right.
It's not, they're not trying to be like, you shouldn't have sex. It's more that the people that are too busy having sex are distracted and get killed. Whereas, and he's like, Laurie's the most sexually frustrated character in the film, and so she's the one that uses all these like phallic objects like knives on Michael. So it's repressed.
Yeah, it's a really great representation for us sexually frustrated people. This is our Black Panther. That'll be the YouTube clip of the week.
So we just mentioned that the character of Michael Myers wears a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know, and I know you do because I talked about it earlier in the week with you, but the Michael Myers mask is actually a Captain Kirk William Shatner mask that was painted white. The budget was so small that the props budget for the mask was about $2, and so they went and found the cheapest mask they could. They came back with a few options. Props department painted it white, made the eye holes a little bit bigger, and changed the hair, and film history was born.
Yeah, it's strange how like so many of these iconic horror masks were accidental, or it's like they didn't realize they were going for something iconic, because like Halloween was born out of budget necessity. When we on the Scream episode, we talked about how the Ghostface mask was like one of many options and was just something they kind of stumbled across. And even like Friday the 13th, it's not even introduced till the third film. So by the time that the franchise itself is iconic, it's already got that level without the mask involved.
Yeah. It's what do you think of Michael as a character? So he was played by a few different people: Nick Castle, Tony Moran, and Tommy Lee Wallace. But it's funny, Tommy Lee Wallace was the props guy, so he'd play Michael anytime Michael had to smash something, because he knew like how it was made, so that he could carefully break it if they needed to use it again or whatever.
Nice.
But also, when you see him briefly without his mask, and apparently for years people have been telling John Carpenter like that bit terrified me, seeing his deformed face. That's just Tony Moran's face. But it's like shot in shadow, and it's like real quick, and people are like, you project onto him what you expect to see.
Is it
Which
not? Does he not have like a bung eye or something?
I think he has a slightly bung eye, but it's not horrific. It's just someone's face.
Yeah. So what did I think of Michael Myers? I thought, by the end of watching all 11 films, I'd say my opinion on him is different. So maybe I'll reveal that at the end. After watching the first Halloween film.
Okay.
Yeah. After watching the first Halloween film, I kind of wasn't crazy about him, because I was like, I don't understand his motivation. He's just kind of soulless. And like I said before, what I liked about Jason Voorhees is that he's doing what he's doing out of like kind of like a misguided act of revenge, and we know that Freddy is doing it for revenge as well. We know that Hellraiser, that Pinhead's just a soul-sucking demon. Like, we know all these other iconic horror monsters' motivations, and to me, Michael Myers, because he doesn't speak and you barely ever see his face and you barely ever see any emotion, it was just kind of, he's just an unstoppable force, and I guess I just didn't find that too interesting in the beginning.
Right.
But maybe.
That's really interesting. Because, well, I mean, you've said that you weren't crazy about him, but that changed, so obviously that means you are crazy about him now.
I love him.
But
I want to marry him.
But, I mean, I think it's interesting that you're like... Well, because that's, I think, what makes Michael so scary is that he doesn't have motivation. Because the whole thing and the whole series really is about, like, Michael actually is just pure evil, and can pure evil exist, and can someone be pure evil? But, I think... Like, apparently the film was made so you would never be able to relate to Michael. Like, you're not supposed to be a sympathetic villain. You're not supposed to understand him. It's just this unstoppable force, like you said, which obviously I guess didn't resonate with you. But I mean, even the actors playing him were told, "Don't act." You're like, your motivation is you stand here, and by the end of the scene, you stand over there. When she says this word, you start moving, and you just walk.
Yeah, and I'll say it now instead of, I'll probably forget if we hold it to the end. What I'll say is I could summarize my feelings now towards Michael Myers with, if Michael Myers wasn't the character he is, the newest Halloween movie wouldn't have worked. Like, there's a as you can imagine with franchises that are 11 films long, you get to quite a severe lull in the middle where it's just such a like slog to get through. And I think in those films it was really depressing and meaningless. But when you get to the more resonant or significant movies in the series, namely H2O or H20 and the new one, it's like all this works because of what you're saying, that he is almost inhuman, and he's the shape, so he's a force of nature. So it works. I think maybe. Do you know what this is coming from? Actually, is that
tell me, AJ. I would love to hear.
Hey, Richard. I will. So, do you remember at the end of the Hellraiser episode? And I'm sorry I keep referencing old episodes. This is kind of a advanced episode, but at the end of the Hellraiser episode for our Continue the Franchise, I pitched like a modern cinematic universe for all the 80s horror icons, and to me the like crux of that idea was coming up with what A-list actors they would get to play the characters. So like for Pinhead I said Adam Driver, and for Jason I said what was his name?
Dave Bautista.
Dave Bautista, yeah. And for Freddy, I said Adrian Brody, which is an interesting choice. Looking back, I don't know what really motivated that, but part of what was frustrating for me is like in that episode, I said I'm not familiar enough with Michael Myers' character to know what A-lister to cast as him. And having watched the Halloween series, I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because acting ability and like star power is irrelevant to this character, and maybe that makes it better because you shouldn't need star power for a good movie. It was just more the fun of the exercise of casting A-listers in these roles. Yeah.
No, fair enough. Yeah, and you mentioned the shape as well, and you might, as the audience, you might hear that term thrown around a bit throughout the rest of the episode, but that he's credited as the shape in the first movie, and a couple other ones, and so that's kind of what he's known as, really. I don't know if there's like another like an equivalency to give, but
like in real life.
Yeah, well, or like another movie where it's like someone's called this and this.
Well, it's more like that's his serial killer name, right? Like you like all these like serial killers have the name that the press calls them. So I kind of saw it as that. It's almost like his superhero name or his supervillain name. His secret identity is Michael Myers. But it's not a secret.
No. So one of the best things about this film, I think we can both agree, is the music.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's great about it is that we can't really sing the music to you now because I tried, and it's not one of those tunes you can sing.
Do you know why? I told you earlier in the week that I was doing like hours of research for one bit of trivia that I didn't think would even come up, but you just brought it up.
It's coming up.
So the reason that the music is hard to sing, I mean, obviously it's an instrumental piece, so it's like hard to sing, but it has got this iconic theme. But it's in 5/4 time signature. Now, I don't know if you know a lot about time signatures, but you know, most modern songs are in 4/4.
Right.
So 4/4. But you also often get like 3/4 also sounds really natural. So like 3/4 is like waltz music kind of stuff. So that means 3 beats to a measure and a beat is a quarter note. And if I'm wrong, tell me, but this is what I was able to understand in a day. I'm talking to the audience, not you. But anyway, so like waltz music goes 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, whereas like a modern pop or rock song would normally go 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, but the beat for the Halloween theme song goes 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5, which is
I can hear the theme tune to 1 2 3 4 5.
Yeah. And so it's quite a rare time signature. You don't see it a lot. However, this is actually our second film franchise with an iconic piece of theme music, which is in 5/4 time signature. Can you guess the other one?
No, just tell me. I'm just gonna be.
It's Mission Impossible.
Oh, of course. Cool. Yeah, nice.
But yeah, so because our ears are so tuned to like 3 and 4, and there's like a bunch of other ones, is you're gonna get 6 over 8 and shit like that. But that 4/4 is so like ingrained in our minds from listening to this, so that like it feels like it's stuttering, or the notes kind of take you by surprise because you're used to this pattern. But I've got GarageBand up on my phone.
All right.
And so it kind of sounds like this. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Did you hear that?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like that.
Jess got real mad at me because I was playing it in the wrong key, apparently. So this is what she says it should sound like. Something like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what it is, man. You got it. That should be the theme for the next one. Just you doing that.
Just me trying to play it.
Like the off notes and all, like when you press, you don't know what one to do next.
But it's a great piece of music, and it's John Carpenter did the score, and so he used that rare kind of 5/4 time signature, which his dad taught him about. So that's kind of all we've got to say about Halloween. There is one. The why does Buzz freeze if he thinks he's an alien, if he thinks he's a space ranger of this franchise? Was there a question that you had burning that didn't make sense to you after watching this?
No, I don't think so. What is it?
Well, so Michael kills his sister when he's 6 years old, and then he's chained up for, what is it, like 11 years, I think? No, more than that.
No, he's not. He doesn't go into jail immediately.
Not jail, but he's in like a psychiatric ward for like 15 years, and he comes out. I think he's supposed to be like 21 when he comes out. But he is seen driving around. How does he know how to drive?
Oh, yeah, true. How does he know how to drive?
Well, because this is like the plot hole of this. Well, it doesn't make sense. The novelization of the film is like says that just when Dr. Loomis, who was like a psychiatrist, would drive him to hearings, he just observed him. And so there you go. There's a deleted scene, and like rare Halloween 1978 deleted scene, which is Kane Hodder, who played Jason, playing Michael Myers dressed up like in a driver's ed class. You can see online, so that's like like a fun little answer to that.
I did think seeing him drive kind of ruins the mystique a bit. Like,
it's one of the only slasher films where you see the killer drive.
It's also like, what's the right word? It's the only like extracurricular activity you see Michael Myers do. If murdering is his curriculum, then driving is the only other thing you see him do.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it humanizes him in a film that's trying so hard not to humanize him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, one last bit of info about this film is so it opens with Michael killing his sister because it's like she's there with her boyfriend, and then they go upstairs and have sex, and 1 minute and 6 seconds later, after going upstairs to have sex, they've finished having sex and he leaves.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
See,
so,
that's the solution. It's not that the sexually frustrated people survive, or that the promiscuous people are the ones that get killed. It's the premature ejaculators that get the best of both worlds, because they get
This
is
their Captain Marvel.
Yeah, they get to get laid and then survive, because that guy survives. The guy survives in the story.
As with a lot of films, quite successful. So what do? You got to make a bloody sequel, mate. So, in 1981, 3 years later, we got Halloween 2, directed by Rick Rosenthal. And what's that one about, Alex?
So it's on the same night. It's like, there's almost no time wasted in between sequels. Laurie
see the end of the previous film.
Yeah, exactly. Laurie is taken to hospital while Loomis teams up with the cops to search for Michael in Haddonfield, but they can't find him. Michael ends up figuring out that Laurie's at the hospital, so he goes there during a power cut, murders a bunch of people, tries to get Laurie. The main kind of thing people talk about when they talk about Halloween 2 is that it's revealed that Laurie Strode is actually Michael's long lost baby sister. And so that kind of reveals a bit of motivation about him, I guess. I don't know why he wants to kill his other sister, or why he killed his first sister, but that's the big thing in Halloween 2 is that, like, that's we don't have enough for this to be a memorable sequel. What can we put in it kind of vibe.
Totally, man. And that is why it's in there.
Yeah.
Honestly. That it was like, they're like, John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, who was the producer for the first one.
Oh, shout out to Deborah Hill, like MVP.
Yeah. Yo, what up?
Bless up.
Yeah, they didn't want to do a sequel. They said it was a standalone movie, but then they offered John Carpenter a lot of money. They said write the script. He took it so that he could earn back what he believes he was owed for the first one, because he's still to this day never really received much money from the first one.
Oh no!
Even though it was this huge thing, but. Yeah, basically, he was like, fuck, we need to have a plot twist in here. I don't know, why aren't they... Star Wars was cool. Let's make them related.
Yeah, man. Totally. So it ends with Loomis and Laurie and Michael going head-to-head in this hospital where Loomis sets the room on fire and Laurie escapes, and both Loomis and Michael seemingly burn to their deaths, and that's the end of the film.
Yeah, and this film probably what do you think of it?
I've ranked these films. I've started using Letterboxd now to rank films and franchises. Okay. And out of 11, I ranked Halloween 2 6th.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it's top of the bottom half.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. This one has the most brutal kill, I reckon.
Is it the hot water one?
Yeah. So a woman's basically drowned in boiling water, and her face keeps getting pulled out, and you see, and each time she comes out, a bit more of her skin is peeling off. And it's a nasty way to go.
No, it's not nice. It made me feel very bad. I was watching it and I was like, I was watching it with my meme lord of a teenage sister, and when
is she even more of a meme lord than you?
Even more of them. Like, she says memes I didn't even understand, man.
Oh my gosh!
And so this woman's like pulled out of this boiling water, her skin's falling off her face, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible. And my sister was like, oh, mood. Like, watching this woman get burned alive she was like, tag yourself, I'm the woman being drowned in boiling water and stuff like that. So I don't know, the kids these days, man.
Hashtag goals, am I right?
Yeah. It used to be us, man. We used to be the at the forefront of like cool slang because Richard and I are 25, so 8 years ago we were in high school, and you still feel like you just got out of high school up until maybe 5 or 6 years out of high school, or at least I did.
Nah, it still feels like I just got out of high school. I was in high school fucking 8 years ago. I work with a guy who I like see as my equal, who I was never at high school at the same time as. He's younger than people I did peer support for in my final year of high school.
Wow. Yeah. So
and I don't see him as being younger than me. I'm like, yeah, we're equal, and then I fucking feel like an old man.
Yeah. So it's weird to have a teenage sister who's always saying new memes that I'm like, what are you talking about? It took me so long to understand what it means to say mood. Like when you see something, it means, for those that don't know, it means like same. Like it's like going like, oh, I feel that. So you see something, you go mood or big mood, and this is so lame. This is like
this is fucking lame.
Doing
AJ.
This like, well, they're called memes, and
yeah. So this we see Michael Myers comes back obviously, and his mask changes a lot throughout all the films, but in this one it's actually the exact same mask as the first, but somehow. The world of the film, no time passes, but his mask becomes all yellowed and the paint gets faded a little bit and the hair kind of gets a bit messed up. But it's because they gave the mask to Deborah Hill. She stored it under her bed, and she's like a real heavy smoker, so it got stained yellowish.
What a great little piece of trivia that is.
Yeah.
Give it to me. I'll take care of it for the sequel. Where are you going to put it, Deborah? I don't know. I'll put it under my bed. Put it under her bed? Why did you put it under her bed?
Like, that should be in a museum.
It belongs in a museum.
But yeah, it's and then at the end of the shoot, they they gave the mask and all the props to the actor because they're like, Michael's never coming back. But apparently the guy that played Michael to get the role, and this is such like a movie thing. He passed by a room where the Michael Myers mask was on a table. He put it on and they walked into the director's office and just stood there. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And he would reply. And they eventually took the mask off and was like, "I want to play Michael Myers." And they were like, "You've got the part."
Ugh, I hate it. that should be a cool story, but it doesn't sound real.
Yeah. I think that's it. You mentioned that this takes place right after. This is actually the only time in the franchise that we see November 1st.
Huh. True.
Interesting, yeah. They all end before midnight on Halloween, which
because
is, as we all know, is October 31st.
Because the equivalents to Friday the 13th are more than just the similar villains, because Friday the 13th and Halloween are the only 80s horrors, that the classics that are like bound by the date in the title, and so in the same way that Halloween 2 is the same Halloween as Halloween 1, Friday the 13th, was it 2, 3, and 4 are all nights, so like 3 and 4 aren't even Friday the 13th, they're like the 14th and the 15th or something like that.
Yeah. But did you know that another piece of up top random trivia, and then we'll move on to the next film? Mm-hmm. This is our second franchise of horror films that released their second part in 1981, which includes a scene where a law enforcement officer gets killed with a hammer claw to the head.
Nice. So the first
Friday the 13th Part 2 came out.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool, Michael Myers. Man. Oh, and Richard.
Hey. Don't bloody put me second to Michael bloody Myers.
Sorry.
All right. Next film. We've got Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, 1982, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, who... Do you remember that name, AJ?
Yeah, he's the editor. I watched a video about this. He was the editor for the first film. And like one of the
props guy.
Oh, sure, yeah. But I think he edited it as well. Yeah. So he.
Yeah, I think so. Because it was like him, Nick Castle, who played The Shape, and Tommy Lee Wallace, who was like props and whatever. And John Carpenter. They were in a band together, and they all did.
Yes.
Shit.
Yeah, I watched that Cinefix video.
The coup de mains?
Something like that.
Something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in good hands, basically.
Yeah. And John Carpenter did the music as well and stuff like that. So what's this one about, AJ? What's Michael Myers up to in this film?
We could not mention this one at all in this podcast, or we could only talk about this one in this podcast. This is a strange... Or we could
talk about it for 1/11th of the time. Let's go.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I'm sure you'll have a more in-depth explanation for this, but basically the plan was for after 2...
AJ, you just deal with the plot, thanks, and I'll do the trivia.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to explain why what I was saying was not going to make a lot of sense. What's this movie about? It's about a doctor who, after a mysterious patient is murdered in his care, he goes to a little town where there's a novelty item manufacturer there called Shamrock something. Silver Shamrock, and they make these Halloween masks that are a witch, a pumpkin, and like a skeleton, a skull.
A skull.
Yeah. And him and his love interest go to this town to try and get to the bottom of the mystery, and what it ends up being is that the Silver Shamrock is like run by Wiccans, I guess, and at the end of the movie, they televise a commercial for their masks that's been playing all the way through the movie, and it's really, really annoying. But basically, when it plays, every child who's wearing one of the masks, as the commercial tells you, it like flashes and they die, or the people around them die. What happened?
They die. Basically, the kids, we see one die.
Yeah.
They demonstrate the technology, and basically the kid's head like turns into snakes and bugs, and it's very... There's no gore in this film, but it's still kind of quite disturbing.
And there's also robots in it. Like, there are robots in this film.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you didn't like it based on the fact that you didn't even remember the name Silver Shamrock, despite the fact that it's said thousands of times in the film.
Going into this, do you know what? I wanted to be real cool. I wanted to be like, Halloween 3 is my favorite Halloween movie. Like, I wanted to like defy the odds and be like, you know what? My continue the franchise is Season of the Witch 2. And then I watched it. I was like, I'm not coming up with a sequel to this. I put it 7th on my list, so below Halloween 2. It is a very unnotable movie. I wanted to really like it, but it just lost my interest. It's not terrible by any means. I think the part that really put me off is that the doctor and the daughter of the patient who died, they team up together, and within like the first quarter of their adventure together, he like makes some real dopey pass at her, and they immediately have sex. And I was like, I don't buy this romance. This is like the most we need them to get together, let's rush along the chemistry kind of thing I've seen in the movie. And when that happened, I checked out somewhat. And I mean, there's not a lot you could say other than that I would say is necessarily bad about it. It's kind of wacky. And it has none of the iconic moments from the first two films, be that the music or the villain. They don't show up again. Yeah,
I mean, like, it is still a good score. It's done by John Carpenter, but and John Carpenter and someone else. But yeah. So there is one scene in the film where they're watching the original Halloween on TV. Mm-hmm. So it's like Michael Myers does technically make an appearance in the film. But yeah, so the plan was to make Halloween be like an anthology style film series where every year a new Halloween film would come out that was just a horror film based on the holiday, essentially.
Like Cloverfield.
Yeah. This one underperformed severely, so they went back to Michael in the next film, as you'll see. But since then, it's now... A lot of people consider it the second best of the franchise, and not only that, but it's considered like a cult film. A lot of people consider it one of the best horror films of the 80s.
Okay.
I quite liked it.
Yeah.
Like yeah. So I love one of my favorite things about it, and you mentioned it being annoying, but in the original Halloween and Halloween 2, every time you see Michael, you hear that like
Yeah.
like that sounds about the Godzilla theme song. But yeah, they in this one, every time something evil is about to happen, you get this do 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 happy Halloween, 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 happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a parody of scary music almost, like
it's Yankee Doodle went to town. It's a parody of an actual song.
I know it's yeah. Wait, is it Yankee Doodle?
Yankee Doodle went to town. No, it's not. It's
London Bridge is falling down.
London Bridge is falling down. Yankee Doodle went to town.
Yeah, but like London Bridge continues, Yankee Doodle doesn't. Like his goes off in a different direction. But they it's like so in the first one you've got this like amazing terrifying piece of music that's like every time it seems like an experiment to be like what's the dumbest thing we can use to signify danger.
Well, this whole movie is
I
an
really
experiment.
like that and I think it worked.
Yeah, no, I get that. Well, here's
and also
a
the
question.
ending's fucking great. I loved the ending of this film.
What happens in the end?
So basically, the main character's found out what's going to happen, that all these kids are going to die, and he gets to a gas station, and these kids walk in with their masks, and they turn on the TV just as the commercial's starting, and he's on the phone to like the TV station, and he's like, "Everybody's going to die. You need to get this off the air. You have to do it. You have to do it." He's like screaming down the phone, and then you see the channel goes to static, and he's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And then they change the channel. It's on another channel. He's like, "You need to get off that one as well. You need to get off that one." And he's like, "I'm serious. Millions and millions of people are going to die." The static channel goes to static. They turn a third one, and then he's like screaming. He's like, "Stop now!" And then it cuts to black, so you don't know if he managed to succeed or not.
So what did this one and Halloween 2 get on Tomatoes? If the first one was 90 and it's 90s, what would
second one got 31%,
and
this one got 43%.
Oh yeah, it's a 43% movie, I'd say. You know, looking at what we got, I kind of wish they had gone the anthology route, at least for the next how many? So that's 7.
3.
So the next 4 films I've got, I wish they were going anthology for.
Yeah. What did you rank the first Halloween on your Letterboxd, by the way?
Second.
Okay.
The first is Halloween Resurrection. That's not. Spoilers. That's 11.
Yeah. So this also this was on Roger Ebert's worst films of all time list.
3 was.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, which he also put Hellraiser 2 on, I believe.
Good on him.
Making our second franchise to do that. After a little bit of a gap, 6 years, 1988, we got Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, directed by Dwight H. Little. What's this film about, AJ?
So, turns out Michael Myers didn't actually die when he burnt alive. He survived, and not only did he survive, but our old friend Dr. Loomis survived as well. Yay!
You're not a fan of Dr. Loomis?
No, it's just unrealistic that they would both survive that, like, room being on... Like, maybe Loomis, maybe, but Michael, you see walk out of the room and fall to on his face and burn.
And he also had his eyes shot out.
Yeah, exactly. So, in this one, it follows... So, Laurie is mentioned. She died in a car accident or something. Yeah. I feel like I'm remembering. So, it follows her daughter that she had off screen, and her daughter's name is
Jamie.
Yep. And so it's basically it follows her, and Michael Myers returns, and he wants to kill the last remaining descendant. He's mainly after the foster sister of Jamie, right? the foster sister's more the main character in this than Jamie is.
Right. Yeah.
Her name is Rachel. Rachel kind of is protective over Jamie. The whole film is like just so boring. I ranked this 8th, so after 2 and 3, and it's basically the only notable thing about it is that at the end of the film, after they defeat,
the end of the film is fucking awesome.
Yeah, sure. The end of the film, they defeat Michael Myers by knocking him down a mine shaft, and then at the end of the film, Jamie, from her perspective, we see something that is like kind of very familiar imagery from when young Michael Myers killed his sister in the first film, and she attacks her foster mother with a knife to Dr. Loomis's screaming of "No, not again, not another one" kind of thing. So it kind of implies that there's a hereditary trait that's passed from Michael to Jamie.
Yeah, so Jamie's a little 9-year-old girl as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if we said that. Yeah, she's a cute little 9-year-old girl in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little kid, which is introduced to us. They will come up later on, don't worry.
You're not just reveling.
I'm not just
casting.
saying these things to be weird. So, yeah, I'm not going to pull a Shane Dawson and not come back to it. Oh, sick burn.
I don't know if that's
all right, anyway.
ubiquitous enough to resonate with all our listeners, but there you go.
But yeah, so everyone wanted Michael back, so the executives caved and brought him back.
And it sucks. It sucks that they brought him back. So joke's on you, public.
Mustafa Akkad. He's the producer. Yeah, anyway, he the original pitch by Dennis Etchison was that Halloween would be banned in Haddonfield, and basically the idea is the Streisand effect, that the more you try to prevent something, the more it ends up happening. So they're trying to erase the memory of Michael Myers, and then that was kind of going to bring him back into existence. But Mustafa Akkad said no, he has to be there in flesh and blood.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not for it or against it because it's so just whatever. And John Carpenter was going to come back and do that pitch, but then he was like, "No, fuck it," and sold the rights to the franchise, so he wouldn't be involved anymore. And that pitch wasn't part of the deal, so they were able to do something else. Yeah, so I guess there's not really a lot to say about that. I mean, as we've said, this is kind of a lull in the franchise, but also this is kind of, in a way, it's like the least offensive, so it's kind of the least interesting. Yeah.
And like I was lying there, I was tired, and I was just like, this movie's so boring. And then the ending did make me be like, oh fuck, okay, this is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. What does this one have on Rotten Tomatoes?
28%.
So what's that? That's the lowest so far.
Yeah.
Yep, it deserves that, I'd say, so far.
Yep.
Good. If you're real angry. Good. It serves you right.
1988, sorry, when that came out, was the only year that the world got a Halloween film, a Nightmare on Elm Street, a Friday the 13th, and a Hellraiser.
Seriously? Shit. That's crazy.
So next we had Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. So this came out in 1989, so only a year later. This was directed by Dominique O'Thennan-Gerard. And what's this one about, AJ?
So Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, begins in a place that I'm hoping you can clear up for me, because I did not understand what was happening. So it's immediately after Halloween 4, and we see Michael's escaped the despite being like ran over and shot a bunch of times, he's escaped the mine shaft and like went into the water and floated off to some dude who lives in a hut who like
little hermit.
Yeah, mends him back to health. But meanwhile, Jamie, who had just stabbed and presumably killed her foster mum, is now in a hospital where she can't speak anymore. But her mum, she didn't kill her mum. Is that correct? Because at one point the doctor is holding her when she's silently screaming, and she's like, "Do you want me to call your mum or something like that?" And I was like, "Wouldn't your mum? The mum would be the last person she'd want to." to call right now. But basically the implication is that Jamie was in another state when she did what she did and is now suffering from kind of like a psychic connection to Michael Myers.
Yeah, so it completely undoes like the coolest part of the franchise.
Yeah, by making her a sympathetic character. Because the cooler way to go with this film would have been to retire Michael Myers and have Jamie Myers be the new Michael Myers. Jamie Lloyd be the new Michael Myers. Like, that'd be dope. Like that,
I think that's what she thought she was doing.
Yeah.
Going into this film.
It ends with them all running into the woods to escape. Oh, Rachel, the main character from 4, gets killed. In fact, everyone gets killed except for Jamie, who survives, and then they lock away Michael Myers, and she's waiting in the car, and then there's an explosion, and she goes up into the cell where he's being kept, and there's fire everywhere, and everyone's dead, and then it just ends.
Yeah.
So he gets away. Yay!
Hooray! Do you remember earlier in the week I messaged you and I was like, I think Halloween 5 has one of my favourite pieces of trivia ever.
What was it?
So, we talk about titles a lot on this podcast, and this piece of trivia has to do with titles. And this is just really strange. So, you might have noticed this film's called Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, but when the title card comes up in the film, it just says Halloween 5.
It's also on Letterboxd. It's just as Halloween 5.
Yeah, and Rotten Tomatoes as well.
Yeah.
But like the DVD or Blu-ray cover says The Revenge of Michael Myers and the poster. But in an odd coincidence, the 5th film of the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween films all have a different title in the film from what it's shown on its cover.
Crazy.
In this one, The Revenge of Michael Myers is missing. In Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning, Part 5 is missing. And in Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, the number 5 is missing.
That's the best piece of cult popture-esque trivia that's ever been said on the podcast. That's so good.
Yeah, that's fucking great, eh? But the comparison, this sort of trajectory, the Jamie character especially, has a lot of parallels to Friday the 13th series, which I think would be remiss not to mention.
Mm-hmm.
I know that remiss isn't a word. I'm making fun of AJ.
None of that. But anyway, because you're making fun of me because I said remiss on an episode 2 years ago that no one remembers. So carry on. What were you going to say? What are you remiss?
But I do.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Jamie Lloyd and Tommy Jarvis are pretty similar characters.
Yeah,
they both appear like. If you remember Tommy Jarvis from, it's played by Corey Feldman in Part 4 of Friday the 13th, and then he's in the next 2. But they both appear in the 4th, 5th, and 6th films of their respective franchises. They're both about the same age in their first appearance. They both become institutionalized and develop homicidal tendencies. Then, like after the killer,
which are also both immediately abandoned in the next film. Both Jamie and Tommy become the next Michael Myers, only for that plotline to be heave-hoed by the time the next film comes around.
Yep. And they both barely talk in the 5th entry, and yeah, their intention was to make them the killer. But yeah, that's interesting. I think it's kind of like, it's in some ways, I guess it's kind of an obvious way for the films to go, to try and like I can understand why producers would be like, oh, we'll make someone the new killer, and then be like, oh no, people just like the killer too much.
Yeah, and they didn't learn lessons from each other.
But yeah, like as we say, it's kind of the least interesting. And do you know who agrees with us?
Who?
Fucking the general public. This is the lowest grossing film in the whole series.
Lowest grossing? What's it on Rotten Tomatoes?
14%.
That's pretty low, bro. I've rated it 9th out of 11. So, for those playing at home, Halloween 1 was 2nd, Halloween 2 was 6th, Halloween 3 was 7th, Halloween 4 was 8th, and Halloween 5 is 9th. So, by this point in the series, I'm just like, they're just getting worse like, as they go on. It's so annoying.
What is Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, 1995, about, directed by Joe Chappelle?
Right, so obviously they've dropped the 6. That's the first thing you'll notice. No, so this film, it's years later, presumably set in the future then, I guess, because Jamie's all grown up. And she...
Well, 6 years have passed.
Yeah, but she's like 9 or 10 in Halloween 5. And she's like
I think 20s. This is one of those things that's like just one of those stupid things that they're like, yeah, it's been 6 years. Jamie has a kid now.
Yeah. But so I was a bit confused. So it opens with a baby being born. And the whole thing is that it's Jamie's baby and she's now part of this cult, like this cult where Michael Myers resides in. So
the cult of Thorn.
Yeah, so is like is Michael Myers the father? Like, whose baby is it?
I think that was like in the original script that Michael was the father, but then that was kind of removed but never replaced with anything.
Right.
So it's like, it's not canon, but it's not canon.
Okay. So anyway, he chases her down, and just like every other final girl in this franchise, she's immediately murdered towards the beginning of the next film. But the baby survives, and the baby falls into the hands of one Paul Rudd.
Come on, you know Paul Rudd's character's name. Come on.
Was it Tommy?
Tommy Doyle, who is the kid that Laurie is babysitting in the first film.
We haven't talked about this yet, but Paul Rudd is one of the many future celebrities to make their first appearance in a Halloween film. Like, it's weird how many future celebrities appear in Halloween films.
Yeah, this was his first film. He filmed this before Clueless, but Clueless came out like a couple of months earlier, I think.
Right, and he sounds real weird. He's got a real weird voice. He talks
He's got
like
real
this.
fucking weird voice.
And so he teams up with Loomis, who's been in all the movies so far, by the way, except for 3. And they also team up with like his next door neighbor. The stuff you need to know from this is that how it works out is that Michael Myers is actually like the product of the cult of Thorn, and he needs to murder all his family members, and it's real
to
like
pass the curse on.
Yeah,
and it makes him immortal and shit as well. The Thorn timeline is kind of ridiculed by the fans. Like 4, 5, and 6. Yes, this is Paul Rudd's first film. And it was directed by Joe Chappelle, which makes this, and are you ready for the most overly specific piece of up-top random trivia we've ever had?
I think I am. It's hard to know.
So, okay, well, let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so this is our second franchise, which is a horror franchise, which consists of 10 or more films, contains a film directed completely or in part by Joe Chappelle, and in the aforementioned Joe Chappelle film, an actor makes their film debut who would later to go on to appear in Party Down, Parks and Rec, Wet Hot American Summer 10 years later, and Knocked Up.
What was the other one?
In Hellraiser Bloodline, Adam Scott makes his first film appearance, which is partially directed by Joe Chappelle.
There you go. What are we doing, man? What are we doing here? Is this the first time a director has crossed over from any of these iconic 80s franchises and has done... I mean, Hellraiser would have been after this, but...
It might have been the first time, but it's not the last time.
Oh, frick.
Oh, fuck me, dude. So...
I ranked this... 10th.
Yeah.
So it's the worst of the Thorns.
Yeah.
Just because it's like it's the whole, this is the age old complaint that explaining how the Force in Star Wars is actually midichlorians. This is the equivalent of that in the Halloween series, because it's explaining that this force of nature, the shape himself, is actually motivated by something that makes him less sympathetic, or more sympathetic, I should say. It ends with them in this like accursed hospital, and Paul Rudd and the baby and the girl all attack Michael Myers, and there's a kid involved as well. There's too many kids in this movie. There's a child. The main character, the main girl, is a child. I forgot about him. And he's like connected to Michael Myers as well. And so they attack Michael Myers in this hospital, and they knock him down with tranquilizers, and then Loomis delivers them out. And then Loomis is like, you guys go on without me. I've got business to attend to. And we never come back to that. And then it slowly pans through where the fight happened, and I think he's gone. Michael Myers is gone. That's the last of that original continuity, more or less.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, this film's pretty bad. There's 6% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeesh.
And there's a producer's cut of this film, which is I don't know if it's supposed to be better or what, but
what the hell is a producer's cut? Like where they put more marketability into the film. The producer's cut is the film. That's what a producer's cut is. But
apparently they did like a test screening of the film, and it was terrible. But and they had to do reshoots of the film, and Donald Pleasance was unavailable for reshoots, having just died. But yeah, he died 8 months before this movie came out.
You only live twice, so
yeah. Once as Dr. Samuel Loomis, once as Donald Pleasance, and they had to do these reshoots. No one fucking wanted to do them, and most of the cast and crew vowed to never make a Halloween movie again because the working on this one was so horrendous.
Well, it sounds like it's a good time then.
Yeah,
it sounds like everyone had a good time.
It's the only film with a male protagonist.
Who's the male protagonist?
Paul Rudd.
I wouldn't even say he's the protagonist. I'd say the chick's the protagonist. She's introduced first and foremost, and
also arguably Donald Pleasance is the protagonist of the first
well,
one.
he's the MVP character. If Deborah Hill, is that her name, is the MVP of the entire of like the behind the scenes, Donald Pleasance is the one you'd cast an A-lister as in my cinematic universe. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't matter who you cast Michael Myers as. It matters who you cast.
You could cast
Loomis
like
as.
Someone like Malcolm McDowell or something.
You could do that.
But also with this film now, Donald Pleasance has been in it 5 times, which means that this is our second film franchise to feature a character with the last name Loomis in half but not all of the films.
You're gonna have to remind me. I do know the name Loomis.
It's Scream, Billy Loomis, and
yes.
Mrs. Loomis,
which are named after. Yeah,
named after him. I don't know. Do you just want to move on? Because
I would love to move on because we get to some interesting territory here. The next ones are the most interesting. Like if what you've just listened to is a severely edited down version of what was actually recorded, because I'm gonna go back and edit so that 4, 5, and 6 are not as depressing and boring as they sound.
Good luck, mate.
Yeah.
So the next film we had was Halloween H2O 20 years later. Which came out in 1998. It was directed by Steve Miner, who also directed Friday the 13th 2 and 3.
Holy shit!
I know.
That's amazing. It happened again, Richard.
Yeah, I pay off my bloody setups. Just call me Chekhov. How I'm shooting these guns.
Shane Dawson could learn a thing or two from you, but
yeah. What's the opposite of a Chekhov's gun? Is it like a Shane Dawson's...
A Dawson's
vlog?
blank.
A Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, sure.
So AJ, what is this one about?
Halloween H20. H2O.
H2O. Just add water.
H2O, Just Add Water, is about these three girls who get powers. They become mermaids because they're not ordinary girls. They come from a great blue underworld. No, okay. So this film ignores everything from Halloween 3, I guess, onwards. Well, it ignores everything specifically from Halloween 4 to 6. Yep. So it's essentially the new Halloween 3. And it's 20 years later, and Laurie's back, Jamie Lee Curtis is back, and she's moved on with her life, still retains some form of PTSD from the events of the first two films, particularly that she, finds out that she was the sister of Michael Myers, so that's still canon. And, it's a film where...
This sounds real like you've been asked to tell the class what it's about and you didn't watch it. Yeah, it's a film where lots of things happen and they do. We all learn something.
So basically the Michael Myers turns up again after everyone thinks he's dead, but he turns up again, and Jamie Lee Curtis now has to defend her child and boyfriend from Michael Myers returning. The whole movie is very stilted and weird and kind of off-putting, and then the last 20 minutes are so badass because Michael Myers turns up again and her son and her son's girlfriend are freaking out because he's just murdered their friends. And there's this one part, it's one of my favorite parts in the whole franchise, where they're screaming, banging on the door to be let in, and Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie, turns up and she quickly lets them in just as Michael gets through the gate, and she slams the door in his face, but there's a window in the doorway, and so they stare at each other 5 inches away from each other's faces, and it's so awesome because there's a look in both of their eyes that says it's back, because they become quite, and they're they have a link now. They have a relationship now, Laurie and Michael, and so there's that look, and it's so great. And so then he manages to end up breaking in, and a bunch of people get killed except for Laurie. Well, the boyfriend gets killed, and no one cares. Not even Laurie. She doesn't even react to it. And then she sends away her son and his girlfriend. By the way, the son and the girlfriend are played by Josh Hartnett and
Michelle Williams.
So not just random people. They're early appearances of future celebrities, and then we get into the next badass part of the movie where she sends them away and she's like, I've got to deal with this. And she grabs an axe and she walks back up to this big house that they live in. And the crane camera zooms back, and there might have been a thunder strike. Probably not. I'm probably remembering that wrong. But she goes, Michael! And the music kicks in, the Halloween music kicks in. And it's hell yeah, let's watch this. This is so badass. It's so effective. And then she runs back into the house and fights him out, and ends up knocking him off another balcony. And then while his body is being taken to the morgue, she steals a gun and hijacks the ambulance. And so she's driving the ambulance with a presumably dead Michael Myers in the back. And then he, of course, awakens and tries to attack her, and she screeches on the brakes, and Michael goes flying out the windscreen, and then he stands up and she drives the ambulance towards him and crashes into him, and they fall off a cliff together, and she jumps out of the ambulance, and then Michael jumps out of the ambulance, but he gets pinned against a log, and then Laurie walks up to him and he can't move, and she lops his head off with an axe.
Very cool.
Very cool. I ranked this 4th out of 11th, and I know that this is not the most popular movie, and I'm not saying it's that good. I'm saying it's 4th out of 11.
That's interesting.
And out of a series that's mostly that bad,
you say it's the not the most popular. What makes you say that?
It's just something I know from it's people talk about it how they talk about Space Jam, maybe just because of the silly title. They're like, oh, what about Halloween H2O? You know, it's like the one they tried to come back with.
Right. That's
so
really interesting because if you read any ranking of the films, you'll more than likely see this as number 2.
Okay,
this is considered
cool.
the second best one. Like, it's considered a good sequel.
Yeah.
It's got 53% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is like, with these schlocky horror movies, that's kind of as high as they get. Yeah. So you talked about how this ignores 3 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
And what I kind of want to do is, like, we talk about things like retcon and stuff like that a lot on the podcast, and they're these kind of like filmy words that general audiences wouldn't know, which to me is interesting that film audiences would accept this and knew that 20 years ago in 1998. What is a retcon, AJ?
A retcon in film is when you either change something or erase a previously established thing from canon. So a good example would be...
It's short for retroactive continuity.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. A good example would be in Spectre, the James Bond movie. You find out that the villains from all the Daniel Craig Bond movies were actually working for Blofeld the whole time, which obviously when they wrote Casino Royale, they didn't think that, it cheapens it, but that's an example of a retcon. They're mostly bad. Retcons are mostly bad. Like, it's only just recently that we're starting to get into things like Halloween, the new Halloween, and the upcoming Terminator 6, which are kind of doing positive retcons. Usually retcons are just cheesy and a way to put more clout into something or change something up. So, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like you say, it works on this one. And it was originally going to be just another boring sequel, Halloween 7, the fucking whatever of Michael Myers. But Jamie Lee Curtis had expressed interest in returning to the franchise, so Kevin Williamson, who you might recognize as the genius behind Scream, wrote a treatment for a film which added her back. And John Carpenter got offered to direct, and that's what got Jamie Lee Curtis really excited. She was so excited to work with John Carpenter and Deborah Hill again. But as we know, this wasn't directed by John Carpenter because his director's fee, he said, was $10 million, and because he thought he was owed from the original movie, so get a bit more for this one. And the studio said, get fucked. And so Jamie Lee Curtis was already signed on, and it wasn't quite what they wanted it to be, but she still enjoyed doing it. And also, they brought another writer on to rewrite the film, and he wrote enough that Kevin Williamson wouldn't be allowed to be, wasn't enough to be credited. And the studio really wanted to market it as from the people behind Scream, so they said, okay, can you share credit with Kevin Williamson? And he said no. So they ended up with this film that was like nowhere near as good or as like marketable as they wanted it to be.
Right. So they could.
And that's what you get.
Yeah.
Bob Weinstein.
The worst thing that's ever happened to the Weinsteins. So because you do see them watching Scream 2 in this film, which is really interesting.
And because in Scream 1, the scene from Scream 1 where Randy is explaining the rules to everyone, it's because they're watching the first Halloween.
Yeah. So breaking the fifth wall.
AJ, what's your does this mean that what is canon with what?
No, well, I do have something like that. And it's not because of what you just said. What I'll say is this. I'm going to save this for later on, I think. But I for some reason, maybe I'd misheard something years ago, but I understood Halloween H2O to be a very different movie from what it actually was. I thought it was something completely different. And...
What did you think?
Well, I'm going to save it because that's now my continue the franchise. So Just know that there is does this mean this is canon with this moment? But it's for my continue the franchise. So fans of AJ's canon need not fret.
Another. This is less a actor making a early appearance. This is an actor making a late appearance, but well, not late as in dead. But Janet Leigh appears in this film, and Janet Leigh from Psycho, obviously. And she's driving the same car that she drove in Psycho. And there's a moment where she's talking to Laurie and she says, "Look, if you'll allow me to be maternal for a moment," which is funny because Janet Leigh is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother.
And Psycho is a film about maternity. Yep. No, I enjoyed this one. I was like, yeah, this is great. This is a lot of fun. It brings back that, because like we're 4, 5, and 6 cinematic releases.
Yeah, this every film
because they don't feel like they were. The 4, 5, and 6 feel like DVD releases, and so this is the first one since like 3, which feels like it deserves the silver screen. You know,
the silver shamrock, if you will.
It's all connected. Does this mean Halloween 3 is canon with real life? Because you see Halloween on the TV in Halloween 3, so it is.
Did you know that I was so hoping you were going to say that?
You son of a bitch, you sheepdogged me. You put me in a corner.
It's like I was going to... After you watched Halloween 3, I was going to message you, taking the piss out of you, and being like, does this mean that Halloween 3 takes place in the real world? Why did I not read about this?
Well, it does, though. It does take place in a other layer of, you know, if Halloween is a movie in Halloween 3, then it, you know.
Right, but why isn't Halloween real? And, you know, Halloween 3 takes place in a higher realm where they're movies.
I don't know. What? We're so deep, dude. We're so deep into levels of reality right now.
Yeah, you're right. Anyway, another little fun connection between franchises is on Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's also on this film.
Yeah, there you
go.
On
his porch is a statue of Butterball, the Cenobite.
Oh, nice. Not the ear bunny.
Yeah. No. The Cenobite, which, if you've forgotten, means member of a monastic order.
From Hellraiser.
Yes, from Hellraiser. All right. Now, my shortest bit of writing that I've done. Halloween Resurrection 2002, directed by Rick Rosenthal, who directed Halloween 2.
Wow.
What's this one about?
I just want to first say I ranked this one 11th out of 11 because this one makes me furious. It's so basically it starts with Laurie is in a psychiatric institute again or the first time. Well, whatever. She is even worse than she was in H2O. And it's because when she thought she axed off the head of Michael Myers in Halloween H2O, she actually axed off the head of a paramedic with a crushed larynx who Michael Myers had put his mask on so that he couldn't be like, hey, I'm not actually Michael Myers. And so she killed an innocent person. And for that alone, I was like, oh, that's so stupid. Because the epic nature of, you know, all of it is like, this it was so awesome to see her finally like have retribution in H2O, and you've just taken that away from her. And then Michael Myers shows up and he kills her. He kills Laurie. He first of all, he tricks her, which is even worse because it like diminishes her character's intelligence. And he kills her, and she kisses him before he drops her to her death. But it's like you don't kill Laurie Strode. That's the rule.
Yeah.
That's the rule, because otherwise you are taking away so much from what the legacy, like what the series is built on, is that it's about this like against the odds lone survivor who managed to escape a force of nature, and they took that away. And if the rest of the movie was about characters dealing with that, maybe if Josh Hartnett turned up again and he took the mantle and like he was the new main character dealing with his mother's death, then okay, maybe you're justifying that as a plot point. Maybe you are making it so that it's this sad tale about how like this woman who all her life wanted to get back at the murderer who like ruined her days, and then she loses. Maybe you could go down that tragic route. But no, the rest of this, you could cut that scene out of, it's right at the start, goes for about 15 minutes. You could cut that out of the movie, and this would just be another Halloween movie.
Yeah, but it'd only be like 60 minutes long.
Well, there you go. So the rest of this movie is about a TV studio who are making a reality show where all the contestants go into Michael Myers' abandoned house and they all wear cameras and have to unravel a mystery, and it's all supposed to be fake, but then Michael Myers actually shows up and starts murdering everyone while it's being live streamed. So that's the plot of this fucking stupid ass movie that kills Laurie Strode.
And the heads of the movies of the TV studio are Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks.
And Tyra Banks, look, I can live with Tyra Banks. Busta Rhymes gives one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a film. He I don't even know how to describe it. He's just like...
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's so stupid. And at the start of the movie, he like convinces the final girl to be a part of it and not to... Because she kind of doesn't want to be involved in the show at the start. And he like convinces, like, yeah, man, I got that. I'm so clever. And it's so stupid. And to make matters worse, he survives. Out of all, like, probably like 10 characters in this movie, Busta Rhymes and the final girl survive, and Busta Rhymes is responsible for defeating Michael Myers. He like electrocutes him, meaning that up until this point, the only two actors we've seen who have actually defeated Michael Myers are Paul Rudd and Busta Rhymes. It's so stupid. If you'd told me that beforehand, I'd be like, "What is this? A joke? Is this a ClickHole article?" Like, I can't believe those are the two actors in the whole world that have the distinction, the honor of outsmarting and defeating Busta Rhymes. I mean, Michael Myers, yeah.
Defeating Busta Rhymes?
Yeah. I want to defeat Busta
Rhymes. Yeah. I mean, this is like... another weird thing that happens in this film that, like, ruins the legacy is... they get to a door and there's a dog that's been like mauled and ripped apart, and one of them's like, "Oh, I guess Michael got hungry." So like Michael eats dogs now.
Yeah. Michael eats dogs now. You thought the cult was bad? Nah. I'd take the cult over this bullcrap.
Yeah, so Jamie Lee the producers were like, Jamie was contractually obligated for a 30-second cameo, but she loved the script so much she like did 4 days of shooting, and we've got this whole bit with her. She was like, "Nah, this film's a fucking joke. I only did it because I was contractually obligated to."
I was gonna say she better not love it, because her reappearing in Halloween 11 kind of insinuates that she was not happy with the direction her character had gone in.
Yeah, you watch any. There's obviously tons of interviews of her recently talking about Halloween, and she's like, "Yeah, I did." She's like, "Halloween H2O was fun, and we were trying to do something good, and then Resurrection's just I had to do it."
Resurrection's the worst Halloween movie, bar none. I defy anyone to tell me that any of them are worse.
Yeah. But do you know what's interesting? They were like, after H2O, they were like, "Right, we nailed it. Let's try doing anthology movies again."
Really?
So they put up on the official Halloween website, should we do an anthology film, or should Michael come back? And the poll said that Michael should return. So they fucking made this film.
Stop listening to the people. The people don't know. Of course they're gonna pick.
People are fucking dumb.
That's the. Of course they're gonna pick Michael. That's not a surprising thing at all. I just hate. What does this one have on Rotten Tomatoes?
11%.
So it's not the lowest. It's higher than 6.
Yeah.
I'd take this over 6 any day.
Wait.
No,
I'd take
6 over this any day. Yeah, fuck. It's got
No,
me
you said it. You can't take it back. No. All right. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think it's important to dwell on it, but we did in 2007 get a reboot, a remake in the form of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007.
Mm-hmm.
What's this one about? I mean, obviously it's a remake, but what's different?
So, I ranked this one 5th out of 11. So, to not reveal the other spaces, Halloween 1 was 2, H20, H2O was 4th, and this is 5th. So this one, it's basically the exact same movie, but compacted into one half of the film, because the first half of the film is a more in-depth retelling of Michael Myers as a child, where you learn about his like tragic family life that led to him killing his whole family. Look, it's yeah, so there's not much else to say about it, because I think more people die in this one. Michael kills...
Yeah, it's got way higher body count.
Yeah, Michael kills more people. But, so maybe the first quarter of it, or maybe the first 2/3 of it, are this backstory where you see Michael, who's played...
It's just under half. It's the film's 2 hours and 1 minute long, I think, and it's Laurie and whatnot don't appear until 52 minutes into it.
There you go. So yeah, basically, we don't need to tell you the plot because it's the exact same as Halloween, except that it starts with a very elongated backstory, and you've got different people cast. So you've got, the main one would be Loomis, is now played by Malcolm McDowell of Clockwork Orange and that episode of Community.
No, he's in the whole season.
Is he?
Yeah, he's the teacher in season 4.
Okay. Well, yeah. So
but he only appears in half of it in a couple episodes. But
so I guess what is the critical reception to this film?
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people didn't, including John Carpenter, didn't like giving too much of a backstory. He said, I watched an interview with John Carpenter. He was talking about that, he was spoke to Rob Zombie and was just make it your own, do whatever you need to. And in interviews, there was a documentary they made, and Rob Zombie talked about how, he's Carpenter was pretty pissed off with a lot of decisions I made, and I spoke to him, and he wasn't having any of it. And John's like, so why that piece of shit lied? I got no idea. And he says, but what I thought, in terms of what I thought of the film, I think they took the mystique away by having him be by telling too much of the backstory, and I think that they made him too tall.
Okay.
Because he's 6'8" in this film.
I agree that they took away the mystique, but my attitude is also well, why not? Just do something different. You know how every 3 months the same Reddit post appears on our movies where it's oh, I wish someone would get a script and have 5 different directors direct the same script and see what it would look like. Different directors' interpretations of the same story. I feel like the Halloween franchise is kind of the closest we have to that, because this is actually just if a Halloween movie was directed by Rob Zombie. It's super metal, it's super interesting and different.
Everyone talks like a redneck,
yeah,
sex craze. In the first scene of the film, a man refers to an underage girl as having a tight little dumper.
And also the part that happened where I was like, Rob Zombie, you are trying to piss people off here, is when Laurie's first introduced. So to reiterate, Laurie, played by Jamie Lee Curtis in the original films, as we said, is the virgin. She's very pure. She's very chaste. She's introduced in this film, obviously played by a different actress. Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't return as a 17-year-old girl. And she turns up, and her parents are talking about their neighbor, and Laurie goes, that old guy's creepy. he's such a pervert. And her mum's like, I don't want to hear about this. And then Laurie takes 2 halves of a bagel and puts it over her boobs, and she's like, "Ooh, you gonna touch my boobs, Mr. Neighborman?" And she's like, "Laurie, stop it." And then she starts like fingering the hole in the bagel, which, first of all, you're mixing up your imagery there, Laurie. Are they boobs? Are they
titties, or are they a vagina?
Look, just stick to one theme here, please. But like, it's so like, you could not make more of a statement about how this is a different Halloween movie than to have Laurie Strode, you know, the archetypal final girl who, you know, and come out and immediately make a disgusting sex joke. But that being said, I didn't. Again, it's like, why not? You know, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not precious about Halloween, and it's not like this was the last one that was ever made. So it's not like this is the legacy we're left with. This is just a different take on the same story, and I didn't really have an issue.
The same Laurie.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't really have an issue with that because, like, I would say Laurie and her friends feel like updated versions of teenage girls in this, like, because this was in 2007 instead of 78, so they're a lot more. I don't know. I've heard girls talk like how the girls in this movie talk. Like, so there's a scene that's in both films, both the original Halloween and the 2007 Halloween, where one of Laurie's friends tells her that she got her a date with this guy from school. And in the original Halloween, Laurie's like, "No, you have to call him and tell him you were kidding, seriously." And in this one, in the Rob Zombie one, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're kidding." And her friend's like, "No, because you need a boyfriend." And then she like pushes her up against the wall and pretends to like hump her as they both like make comically inaccurate sexy sounds. And I was like,
no, those are pretty accurate, I thought.
but that happened, and I was like, look, I remember girls in high school doing shit like that. Like, I was talking to my friend Kate, who's actually one of our patrons, who's seen a bunch of these movies as well, and she was talking about this movie. Hey, Kate. And she was talking about this movie to me, and she was like, "Oh, it's so bad because it's like what 50-year-old men think teenage girls talk like." And maybe that's the case, and maybe I'm just that out of touch with what teenage girls talk like.
I thought you were going to be like, I talked to someone who used to be a teenage girl, and she's fucking wrong about what teenage girls are like.
Well, I mean, yeah, so I'm open to the idea that I just didn't pick up on that because I'm not a teenage girl.
I think the dialogue in this film is like laughably bad. And also Scout Taylor Compton's performance as Laurie is one of the worst performances I've ever seen on film.
I don't know why you're dying on this hill. So Richard messaged me yesterday saying like, "Oh, Scout Taylor Compton's worst actress ever," and I was like, okay, like I'm not gonna go out to bat for her, but I was very. I would describe her performance as unremarkable. I didn't think it was bad or good.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it's not so obtuse in the second one, but in the first one I was just like, oh my god.
Right.
Whereas it's interesting because a lot of people point out Sherry Moon Zombie playing Michael's mum as being like distractingly bad. And it's like, dude, you got to stop. Rob, you got to stop putting your wife in movies because she can't act. Right. But I mean, I think I just wasn't paying enough attention to her. Yeah, there is couple of interesting things in this film. Actually, I just want to point out that. So I was reading a Reddit thread about the Halloween films, and they mentioned this one, and someone said, "Oh, I didn't like," and this, I just loved this quote. Someone was like, "I didn't like how they gave him a full backstory and turned him into a redneck with tard strength."
Oh, 2007. Come on.
No, this is like a week ago.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. Oh, anonymous Redditors hiding behind the mask of the internet.
But yeah, just the term tard strength.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the one thing that's very Rob Zombie in this film is, do you remember how Laurie's best friend dies?
It's a recreation.
Oh no, she doesn't die. She's attacked, and what state she's in?
She's naked.
Yeah, she's got full boobies out.
All of them.
Yeah. And
All of her nipples.
What did you think of that? What did you think of it?
So, okay, my biggest issue with this movie from a moral perspective is that it enjoys the sex parts too much. Like
right.
both. So I don't know if people know this, but the next film we're talking about is actually a sequel to this film, also directed by Rob Zombie, and both are way more sexualized than the other films in the series. Yeah. So Rob Zombie, I feel, is like your go-to example for a mid to late noughties director who did movies where like naked zombie chicks would walk around. I mean, so the probably the most I didn't really want to talk about this too much because I apologize if this triggers anybody. But there's a rape scene at towards the beginning of this film, and again, it's a rape scene that's like definitely not needed in the film. It's between two of the asylum guards and a patient, and it's how Michael gets out of his cell. But again, it's filmed so it's
these two guys come in and rape this woman in front of Michael to like provoke him. But yeah, like you're about to say, it's filmed so that like you get the feeling that the director's wants you to watch it and be like, fuck, that chick's real hot, not, oh my god, that poor woman.
When we'll move on from this because I feel like this is a bit of
I interrupted you so that you wouldn't have to be the one saying that, but
no, fair enough.
But it's a very male gazy kind of scene.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and we'll move on from this in 10 seconds. I was just gonna say that for reference, go watch Monster, directed by Patty Jenkins, and look at how unsexualized the rape scene and that is. And that's, if you're gonna portray rape on screen, how about you don't make it sexy, because it isn't.
Yeah. I do just
look,
want
can we
to,
just
I do just want to come back around to the naked, some of the nudity in this film. So yeah.
Okay.
The best friend gets attacked and she's topless and she's got these big breasts and they're covered in blood and she's running around. But do you know who plays the best friend?
Who?
It's Danielle Harris, who you might remember played the sweet little 9-year-old girl we were introduced to in Halloween 4.
I did actually read that and then forgot that she was in them. That's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, so that's why I focused earlier on the fact that she was 9 years old when we meet her.
Right. So what happened was that I was looking up actors' names to see if I knew them from stuff, which, you know, you do. When you're a film buff, you do that when you watch movies, you know. Have I seen this person before? And I came across the girl who plays Jamie and noticed that she was credited as being a Scream Queen. And I was like, is she really a Scream Queen if she's like plays a little girl in 2 movies? And then it was like, she also returned in the Halloween remakes. And I was like, oh, I'll have to look out for that. And then forgot it until 20 seconds ago when you brought it up again. So okay, so that's messed up. That's like how the girl from Robert Rodriguez's Spy Kids is in later Robert Rodriguez movies like Machete, all sexy like. And it's like, you grew up with this man and now he's got you doing sexy scenes.
The Halloween franchise grew up with this girl. She's also the voice of Debbie in the Wild Thornberrys.
Oh, good.
Good for her.
Fine. Let's see the Wild Thornberrys Halloween crossover we've all been. Michael goes on safari.
Speaking of crossovers, when they were talking about after doing a Halloween film after Resurrection, they put a poll up on the official site again, being like, hey, should the next film be a crossover with Hellraiser? And everyone was like, fuck no, so they made this instead.
Yeah, I was about to be like, why do they keep putting up polls to make their multi-million-dollar decisions here? But in this case, I don't know if I would have wanted to see a Hellraiser crossover. Because I think, like, Michael, the Halloween series is more stooped in reality than Hellraiser, which is like explicit magic. in it and stuff. Like you can claim that all the Halloween movies exist on like a reality similar to ours, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway, Rob Zombie made a sequel to that called Halloween 2, sometimes referred to as H2, which came out in 2009. What's this one about? I
ranked this third. And I think I might be the only person in the world who ranks this movie third.
I've seen this one because I've just looked at a bunch of rankings. You either see this second or third or last.
Oh, really?
On people's rankings, yeah.
Okay, so pretty hot and cold then.
Yeah, but I like you're like, I'm going to come in with all these controversial opinions. Then I'm like, actually, that's a very commonly held opinion.
Yeah. I feel better about that, to be honest. But it's just funny though that like my second favorite Halloween movie is Halloween, and my third favorite Halloween movie is Halloween 2. But it's not the sequel to Halloween. It's the sequel to Halloween.
I think the general consensus of this one is, and I think that this is what kind of Rob Zombie did as well, is that like this is the only film that isn't trying to recreate the magic of the original.
100%. That's just what I was about to say. Yeah.
This is like the fork in the road of like where for the first time they're taking another direction.
Yeah. Exactly. So
this is a sequel to a Rob Zombie film, not a sequel to a Halloween film.
Yeah, exactly. So this one starts very similar to the original Halloween 2, with Laurie going to jail and Michael getting out, and then he kills everyone in the hospital, and just as he's about to stab her, Laurie wakes up, and it turns out it was just a dream, and it's been a year since the attack of the events of the first film, and so for the only time in the Halloween franchise, with Halloween 2018 included, we see Laurie in a time period that is different, because we see her, years later with PTSD twice. We see her with PTSD, with PTSD 3 times if you include Resurrection. This is the only time we're like, what happened a year later? And so I really liked that. And again, it tells a different story where basically Michael is, returning to wreak havoc, basically. But Loomis in this film, Loomis in the original Halloween films is depicted as this very Machiavellian character. He's like, I have to stop at nothing until Michael Myers is dead in the ground, basically. He's like, he is pure evil. Whereas in the Rob Zombie movies, and especially in Halloween 2, he is a egomaniac who's wanting to make money off the books he's written about Michael, and is actually quite a bad guy. And I'm going to say it, that's a more interesting character to me than the other Loomis. Because to me, it's just like, cool, let's see what happens when... Like, it reminded, like, if you ever look into, like, the O.J. Simpson case, one of the famous things people say about the O.J. case is everyone was trying to make money in that case. So, like, the victim's family was trying to make money. The judge of the case was trying to make money. Like, they were all trying to be famous because it was O.J. Simpson. Yeah. And this is what Loomis in this film feels like.
Well, isn't the judge one of, like, only 2 people involved that hasn't written a book?
Maybe, yeah. Well, there you go, right? Exactly. Like, that's how many people were trying to cash in on it. And so I liked that characterization of him. And Malcolm McDowell playing him does a really good job as well. Also, Brad Dourif plays the sheriff in both the zombie movies, and Brad Dourif's probably the best actor in the whole franchise, and he's in like the Rob Zombie films, and I really enjoyed his performance in both these 2 films as well. Yeah,
I do just have to tell you to shut your stupid whore mouth though, because I presume you mean after Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I'm
gonna how familiar are you with Brad Dourif though?
Not at all.
I would say I'm open to Jamie Lee Curtis being proven a better actress, but I have seen more really good performances by Brad Dourif. There's an X-Files episode, it's in season 1, called Across the Sea. Go watch that, he's excellent in that.
Right, anyway. And you go watch Freaky Friday and we'll see who wins.
So Halloween 2, yeah, I don't know what else much to say about it beyond, at the end, Michael Myers turns up again and kills a bunch of people, and throughout the whole movie, Michael Myers is getting visions of his dead mother and him when he was a child. And it ends with a big shootout where Michael Myers gets killed, Loomis gets killed, and Laurie almost gets killed, but it ends with her being in an insane asylum, also seeing visions of the mother in a way that infers that she will take up the mantle of the Halloween killer from here on out. And another cool thing about this is that the seeds of, well, the plot point that Laurie is Michael's long lost sister is planted in there from the beginning of the first film, so it's not so much a bad plot twist in the second film. She doesn't find out till the second film, but it feels way more intentional in this version than in the original two. This is a good time. This is a good movie.
It's interesting. Apparently, in the director's commentary, Rob Zombie says that Laurie actually dies, and the psychiatric ward is like her final thought.
Well, that doesn't really make sense, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That's in the unrated director's cut commentary.
Right.
So I'm not sure if what the deal is there. But so this film, Rob Zombie said he never wanted to do a sequel to his one, but the studio said, well, we're going to make one. And he's like, well, I'll do it then so that no one else fucks it up.
Really? Because this feels like he did the first one so he could do the second one.
Well, apparently he when he pitched the first one, he was like, I'm pitching two movies, an origin story and then a remake of the first film.
Right.
And then he condensed them down into one.
This feels like you've got to watch Halloween 2 and Halloween in one go. Like, it feels like a 4-hour movie.
Right. This film also stars Weird Al Yankovic and Chris Hardwick.
Woohoo!
What do you think of that?
Very bizarre, but a surprise, but to be sure, but a welcome one. Like, it's this is new territory. We get some of the only self-awareness that we see in the Halloween franchise, I think, with the scenes that those two guys are in. They're on a talk show that Loomis goes on to promote his book, and Weird Al says funny things. Like, at one point, Chris Hardwick is like, "So, Dr. Loomis, he doesn't even say it. He says, like, how do you feel about all the controversy that's come out over your work and people saying that you're just in it to make money?" And before Dr. Loomis can answer, Weird Al goes, "Well, I disagree with that criticism," and it's real funny. And there's another point where he brings up Mike Myers.
The Austin Powers, Mike Myers.
Good stuff.
Which is funny that he's like canon.
Yeah.
What else do you want to say about this one, AJ? This is your baby.
Look, it's metal AF. It's just it's a good.
It makes sense where it's directed by a metal singer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, totally right. Like, I agree. I'm not like being hoodwinked. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, that's why it works, because it's cool like that. This is, if you're listening to this and you're 15 years old, rent out these movies, have a sleepover with your pals, get some popcorn and some fizzy, and just watch Halloween and Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie. Like, they're that kind of movie.
I don't think kids do that anymore.
Yeah.
They're too busy eating ass. It's 2018, AJ. Grow up.
You're right.
But yeah, so this film has 20% with critics on Rotten Tomatoes.
Fine. Yeah. I'm not even mad.
But also this means that Danielle Harris appears in the series 4 times, whereas Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasance both appear 5 times.
Right.
So next we had Halloween 2018, directed by David Gordon Green of Pineapple Express fame.
And
what's this one about?
Spoilers from here on out for Halloween 2018.
Yeah, actually. Yes, very good point. Spoilers for a film that's still in cinemas. The cool thing about this film is it ignores everything from one onwards. It ignores them being siblings as well, which is only introduced in the second film.
It's the first sequel where them being siblings isn't canon.
Yeah, it's the second go at Halloween 2, essentially. And so, I think if you could go out and watch it now based on just your pop culture knowledge from this podcast, or if you've only seen the first one, don't feel like you have to catch up. You can just go see this one, because I would recommend it. I would recommend you guys see it because it's a good movie.
So this one is about Laurie. It's 40 years later. She's now even more of a hermit than she was in the now non-canon H2O. And yeah, she's approached. This is going to be a hard story to recount. I might just hit on the main beats because there's actually, we'll talk about this later, but there are a couple of like abandoned plot threads in this movie. You know, there's stuff of like the podcasters at the start that it's abandoned for a reason, but it's still, I don't know, it didn't feel closure to me. But anyway,
well, I mean, they got killed.
Yeah. So the movie is basically about Laurie's estranged daughter, who was taken away by child services because Laurie taught her until she was 12 about how to survive being attacked by a serial killer, and Laurie's daughter's daughter, Laurie's granddaughter, who just wants to reconnect with her grandma. And Michael escapes the asylum, goes on a killing spree, turns up to kill everyone, but this time Laurie's ready for him. And the climax of the film happens in Laurie's house, which is decked out to protect her family. So they're in the basement, and Laurie goes around looking for Michael in her house, and eventually they manage to trap him in the basement, which is actually a trap where they set the house on fire, and he presumably burns to death. I kind of wish they showed him burning to death.
Yeah, I think that was really dumb.
Yeah. If you stay to the end credits, you hear him breathing, but you know, that could mean nothing.
Yeah. What'd you think of the film?
I ranked it number 1. I'd say it's my favorite Halloween movie. And I also think this is a statement on where reboot culture is at, because you get things like 2007 Halloween, you get other, reboots from 10 years ago were almost never, or maybe reboot's the wrong word, but certainly like nostalgia, films that bank in on nostalgia never used to be good. And I think that's because in 2007, the incentive was, let's do an updated Halloween. And in 2018, it was, let's do a Halloween that's an homage to the original.
Yeah, I mean, let's do one that's,
Yeah, so I actually think this is a positive move for bad distant sequels, is that they were bad because they were trying to update and be modern, whereas now we're so obsessed with nostalgia that they're becoming a bit more palatable and a bit more... this film doesn't feel like it's trying to usurp Halloween. It feels like it's a love letter to the original film. As I said, I quite liked it. I thought that there was some really kind of average plotting in it throughout. Like, for example, the podcasters, I know they die, but it's still like, it feels like that story is going to be relevant for the whole film, and then they get killed. So the start of the film is about these podcasters who are trying to tell the true crime story of Michael Myers, and they end up getting killed by him. There's the main girl, Laurie's granddaughter, her boyfriend cheats on her at one stage, and then he doesn't even like get killed, which is usually what happens in these kinds of movies.
That's also, that also is relating to that is my least favorite part of the film, when she sees him kiss another person, and this is kind of a bigger discussion on horror films in 2018, but she sees him kiss another girl, and then they're having a fight, and he grabs her phone and goes, "Oh, look, your precious phone." And he throws it in like a bowl of custard, and she just like gives him this look like, "You're so immature," and walks off. So, 2 things. 1, no one would ever fucking do that. 2, no one would ever fucking react like that. Like, that's so... Out of how good and well written this film is, that is like one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Like, it's written by people that like don't know how obsessed with their phone. And I'm not being like, characters are so obsessed with their phones these days. Like, they are vital pieces of technology to have. And to have your one just like destroy, and then just to walk away and not try to save it, was like ridiculous. And it's like, in 2018, it's just like a thing in horror movies of you have to have them not be able to use their phone somehow.
Yeah.
Which is, it's lazy and it's annoying, and it's like I would much rather see a film have cell phones, but you've got some other you've got other problems, because basically Laurie and her mum are trying to get a hold of her, but phone's not working, and it's like have them get a hold of her and be like, Michael's on the loose, you need to get here now, and then she can encounter other trouble on the way.
Yeah,
but like the whole, like, we still listen. If you listen to if you're a member of our Patreon, you listen to our generic movie podcast where we talk about Boo 2. They have just the line, "Oh, phones don't work out here."
Yeah, totally. So no, I agree with you. I'd like to go over a couple like this is dope moments in this film that I felt.
Yeah, well, there's the dopest moment of the film, which is obvious.
So I'll save my favorite one for last. So. First, I want to give a shout out to the one take where Michael just walks around the neighborhood murdering people and the music's playing and it's real cool.
Which is actually in the second trailer if you want to see it, but don't want to go see the movie.
Right. There's also one of the characters gets killed, and he gets killed in private property where the security light goes whenever someone moves. And so Michael doesn't move when the light's on, and whenever the character moves, Michael's changed position and stuff like that. That was a cool little, horror movie setup. But no, okay, the most... Oh, actually, no, the other thing that was significant was that the replacement Loomis, who's another kind of weak element of the film, because it was like, at least make it like a female. It's basically discount Loomis, who's exactly like him and studied under him. But there's a part where they run over Michael, the cops run over Michael, and the cop's like, oh, we got him, and then the replacement Loomis like kills the cop because he's obsessed with Michael. Which again, in a... we were talking about this after we saw it with the people I saw it with. There's a enticing idea there to kill off Michael at 3/4 of the way through the film and have the essentially Loomis become the new Michael. It's enticing.
Yeah, because he puts on the mask.
It's definitely not as good as an idea of what does happen, but when that did happen, I was like, oh shit, he just got snoked. Like where are we going now? What's gonna happen? And it didn't play out, thankfully, because I didn't really like the Doctor character, who immediately gets killed like 2 scenes later.
In the most ridiculous part of the scene.
he gets his head stomped like it's a pumpkin and it mushes because skulls aren't strong.
But also, when when Laurie meets the new Loomis, she goes, "Oh, so you're the new Loomis."
Yeah, exactly. So the...
Wait, before we get to like the obvious good part of the film, can I just say my two that got me? That got me. So one, you see the silver shamrock masks quite prominently in one scene. And I was like, eh. But the other thing was, so there's the cold open of, which is the same way the trailer opens, of like the podcast is going to see Michael, and then it like cuts, like smash cut to Halloween, the title in this familiar orange font, and the music starts, and it has opening credits, and films like don't have opening credits anymore, and it even says like, and introducing so and so as Allison, and it's like, yes, that got, I was like fist pumping, I was so excited.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. Okay, so the most badass scene in the film would be the climax as a whole. So I don't know if you've seen it, you might not want us to be relaying it so in depthly if you've just seen it, but if you haven't seen it, then I feel like we have to. So basically, Karen, who's Laurie's daughter, is in the basement, and Laurie's moving around the house trying to find Michael. There's a part where he actually like smashes his hands through the window and like grabs her, and you know, the filmmakery here is like, you fall for it, did you? I was like, I was actually like, if Laurie dies here, this is going to be such a disappointing end for the character.
Yeah, I didn't fall for that.
No, I was just because they've killed her before, so I was like have they not learned the lesson?
I wasn't sure if Laurie would survive, but I knew it wouldn't be then.
Right, and she ends up shooting 2 of his fingers off, which is dope. And then she like slowly like moves around the house trying to find him. Eventually he like attacks her and throws her off the balcony, and just at that point Allison, the granddaughter, shows up at the house having found them, and while Michael's distracted thinking about what he's going to do next, he looks down, and just like from the first film when Michael got thrown off the balcony, now Laurie's gone, and it plays that one twang from the soundtrack, and it was like I said fuck yeah in the cinema. People around me laughed. It was great because like it was very cathartic, you know, to watch, to binge a 40 years worth of films in 2 weeks and then see like a sick payoff like that. And it's like, and from that moment on, the tables kind of turn and it kind of becomes Laurie's the invincible one now. You know, you can't kill Laurie now. So anyway, Laurie's, you know, disappeared, and Karen manages to get Allison to come. She opens up the secret door and brings her in. But Michael works out where it is, and Karen picks up her gun with her initials on it that she was taught to use as a kid, and she opens the door, and she's aiming, and she's crying, and she's like, "I can't. Where are you, Mom? I can't do this. I can't do this." And she's like sobbing and stuff, and like she like lowers the gun, and then Michael like, you know, turns the corner and looks down at her, and she immediately, the sadness on her face drops, and she goes, "Got you," and shoots him, because it was all a fucking ruse, and it's awesome, and it's like, hell yeah, and it's what's her name? What's the actress's name?
Judy
Greer, who's badass. And as she shoots him, the camera like zooms back up, and you see Laurie right behind him, and she goes, "Happy Halloween, Michael," and like gets him, and it's like, you got to understand, at this point the only people to take out Michael is Paul Rudd and Busta Rhymes. This series really holds back retribution from you in a way that's really unsatisfying, and so to finally get, after 40 years, a decent defeat, more or less, of Michael, and she like knocks him down, and they get out, and then these bars come across, and she like lights a match and blows the house up, and it's like, I mean, their dad died, so that kind of sucks, but they don't really dwell on that very long.
Yeah, no one cares.
I wish they kind of didn't kill him, to be honest. I felt like it was, and if you're not going to deal with it, because you don't see them react to it.
Well, because it's not even, I felt like you're not even really shown that Laurie knows, but the other two, you don't really know that they even find out. Yeah,
and I kind of wish they'd figured out another way to write him out than to have him be like a meaningless, because that's like, you know, that's their 40 years of PTSD, is now they've lost their father/husband. But look, anyway, what is this a good movie? Yeah, it's a great movie. Is it a transcendent, profound statement on the genre of slasher and Halloween as a series? No, it's a really good movie. But it's not profound. It's not anything to write home about. It's just a good time, you know?
Yeah, it's currently sitting at 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
But yeah, no, it is a really good movie. It's definitely not without its flaws. There's a couple of misplaced bits of humor, like strange bits of humor. Like there's two cops, like right before the climax, these two cops are sitting in a car and they're talking about banh mi, Vietnamese like sandwiches, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's just really weird and out of place.
There's also, you get a lot of like random halves of conversation. Like there's another scene where it cuts to these two characters you haven't seen before, which is the son and his father. And the son's like, "Look, I respect your wishes. I really want to dance." And it's like, what specific dialogue is this that we're not getting like any more eyes into?
And it's also like an 11-year-old boy and his like 78-year-old father.
One bit of humor that I didn't really like in it was, and I know this is a popular character from what I've read, but one of the babysitters who gets murdered, she's babysitting this little kid, and he's a real smart ass, and that's funny and that's fine. But then when she's getting murdered, he like runs up the steps and sees, and he's like, "Nope, I'm gonna go get help." And it's like, this is ruining the moment to have that kid be like still being a comic relief and like during a murder happening in front of him.
Yeah.
And then you never see him again. Another kind of like abandoned plot thread. It almost feels like.
Yeah. What else? I mean, it's just because it's so fresh in my mind and it's so recent and it's so good. I feel like I can complain about it. But like, there's also Judy Greer's delivery of her backstory is like the worst piece of acting in the entire series.
Yeah, it's worse than Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, it's real because Judy Greer is not a bad actress, but oh my god, she's just like my mother. Fucking made us use guns, and it's like
they used.
What are you doing?
It's like she was just doing the lines for the scene for like blocking, and they lost the takes of them doing it better, and so weird.
So John Carpenter again returned to score the film, which is great hearing his music again. And apparently he was quite involved in the development because David Gordon Green and Danny McBride wrote the film, and apparently they went to John Carpenter and they got him to like kind of help with solving problems and things like that. Like, oh, we've written ourselves into a corner, and John Carpenter would help them.
Yeah,
he said like things like how do we get him to get the mask and the mechanic suit, like these iconic elements. How do we bring them back? And apparently, Danny McBride didn't appear in the film because they didn't want to cheapen it with like celebrity cameos and shit like that.
Yeah.
Which is a good call, and it shows like self-awareness from Danny McBride. But they did an AMA on Reddit recently where basically someone asked like, what would you have done if Jamie Lee Curtis didn't come back? And Danny was like, you would have had me playing Larry Strode, and no one would have wanted that.
Very good.
Fucking Larry Strode.
Cool. No, it's good stuff.
What's up, dickhead? I'm Larry fucking Strode.
He like takes out Michael Myers and he rips his mask off. He's like, my mask now. Puts it on. Totally my mask. So
here's my fucking mask.
It's a Hot Rod reference. My favorite Danny McBride film. I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day. You're gonna beat the demons out of me? I go to church every goddamn Sunday. So good. Sorry, I'll stop. I can't imagine anything's lamer than a movie podcast just quoting movie lines at you. So I'll stop. But there you go.
But yeah, so the one of the biggest things this film does is ignore Halloween 2, and it even comes out directly and says that it's dumb because in the film they're like, wasn't it a brother? And like, no, they weren't brother and sister. That's just something that some people made up.
Well, I thought there was maybe like a more delicate way to shoehorn that line in there, to be honest.
Right.
I felt like it felt too on the nose to me, but whatever, it's not a big deal.
There's but I mean I think it's a cool decision because Michael as a character is scarier if his victim could be anyone.
Exactly. And as I said at the start about how initially I didn't like him, that the shot that kind of won me over as to this is the character that Michael Myers needs to be was when they're like looking down into the basement and the bars are over it and there's fire everywhere and he's just staring up at them, and it's like, damn, you couldn't do that with a sympathetic character. Like, you couldn't do that with a humanized character. Yeah, he's the shape, man. Shape.
Shape. But also, so with this film, Jamie Lee Curtis has played Laurie Strode in 5 films, each in a different decade. How ridiculous is that?
That's insane. That's great.
She played her in 78, 81, 98, 2002, and 2018.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to see GQ. Can you please they probably will do a Jamie Lee Curtis talks about her most iconic roles. That's a legitimately good. Like, I would love to see her talk about her most iconic roles.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, that would be so good. Hearing you talk about Freaky Friday.
Halloween and Freaky Friday, the two Jamie Lee Curtis movies.
It's like 20 minutes long. It's just 10 minutes on each of those films. Yeah, fuck. I hope they do that. So,
yes.
I think I had one more thing to say about this film, but I've forgotten it. So, I will move on.
Oh.
To let me just go over if there's any up top random trivia I forgot to mention. So this is our 5th longest franchise in terms of runtime. After Freddy vs. Jason, Godzilla, Showa, X-Men, and Land Before Time. but it's our fourth by number of films because there's more films than X-Men, but the films are longer in X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
It's also our, I think, sixth franchise that we had to go to the movies for.
Oh, yeah.
After Ghostbusters, Transformers, Bad Moms, Daddy's Home, and Mission Impossible.
And Logan.
Oh, Logan, yeah, X-Men, so seventh.
I've got one.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's our.
And I've got one more.
It's our second one. It's our second longest franchise. No, it's the franchise with the second most amount of reboots after Godzilla.
Yeah.
Or it might have the same as Godzilla. And if you count there being two, with Halloween 2018 being a sequel to Halloween 1978, then I think that puts it one up above Godzilla. But it is the most amount we've seen a film rebooted in which the same actress returns to play a character, I think. I worked this. Basically, there's a lot of rebooting in this series.
It's our second franchise in which an iconic horror villain doesn't speak until the 9th film in the franchise.
What does he say?
Well, because in Halloween, which is the 9th for the Rob Zombie one, he just speaks. But in Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, he has one line of dialogue that's kind of there by accident.
Doesn't he possesses someone, right?
Yeah, and they speak because they're like, fuck, we need to not give away who it is. But yeah, so, and that's it's a lot of things. But yeah, also it's weird, this film, we talk about titles a lot on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do that now. The original script for Halloween was called The Babysitter Murders. And it took place over several nights, but to keep budget down, they made it all happen on one night so they wouldn't have to change costumes. And they chose Halloween because it's the scariest night of the year.
That's a cool story of how to get the title.
What do you think of The Babysitter Murders?
Similar to Toy Story, how you couldn't really call the whole franchise that.
Yeah, I did like in Halloween 2018 that it's referred to as The Babysitter Murders.
Right.
They're like,
nice.
1978 is like The Babysitter Murders. Also, which reminds me of the thing I was going to say about how 2018 is that they're talking in the car and they're like, oh, it's like, is there a compulsion that like drives them to go? And they're kind of talking about the Cult of Thorn.
Right.
It seems like they could be referencing that. But some alternate titles of the film. So the shooting script for The Revenge of Michael Myers was labeled Halloween 5 and Things Go Bump in the Night.
and things go just call things.
The Curse of Michael Myers was originally titled Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers, and there were work prints and teasers with that title. It was later renamed Halloween 6, and then the final title, which loses the 6.
I like Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers. I think that's a better title.
Yeah. What about this one? Entertainment Tonight aired a segment about the film where it was called Halloween 6, Michael's Back.
It's just stupid. He's back in all of them.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got Halloween H2O 20 years later, which has got to be one of the worst fucking titles I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's this Legally Blonde situation where, like, the movie's not about water.
Yeah.
If it was about water, you could call it that.
Well, it's the 7th film in the franchise, and water has a pH level of 7.
Oh, well, never mind then.
It's a brilliant title.
Perfect title.
But the working title for that was Halloween 7, The Revenge of Laurie Strode.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, take out the 7 because it's a reboot. But
yeah, because if they paid attention to, if they kept 4, 5, and 6 canon, then this would be cool to do like the blank of Michael Myers, the blank of Michael Myers, the blank of Michael Myers, the blank of Laurie Strode.
Totally. I love it.
Then we had Resurrection, which was originally called Halloween the Homecoming.
Yeah, Resurrection's a weird title to give it. I think Homecoming's better.
Well, I think... Yeah, but I think to make audiences be like, yeah, no, he's back alive because he's so definitively dead at the end of the last one.
A marketing decision, yeah.
The 2007 one, not sure if this was necessarily when Rob Zombie was attached or like whether they were working on another sequel, but it was originally called Halloween Retribution.
Right.
Rather than just Halloween. And then
I just shrugged, which you couldn't hear, but that's what I did.
The newest one, apparently they talked about calling it Halloween Returns. I think that was before it took shape of what it is, and also Halloween H40 40 years later. But
Halloween Returns.
Yeah, and then I've got this quote from David.
What, it returns every year.
It's apparently there was a discussion about calling it The Shape. So, do we call it The Shape? Do we call it Halloween Returns? What do you call it? Technically, it's the third Halloween too. It kind of got to the point where we we don't want to not invite anyone. We don't want someone who's unfamiliar with the previous films to think, well, I need to catch up. So we just thought, for simplicity, let's call it Halloween.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. What would you have thought about calling it The Shape?
Nah. You're completely losing your audience there. I didn't know he was called The Shape till the third movie.
What about calling it Michael Myers?
No.
Oh, stupid, shut up. We talk about taglines now, and I only want to talk about this because I really like one of the taglines. So the tagline for the first thing, for the first film was "The night he came home." What do you think of that?
I don't know. It's not really clear what it's talking about if you haven't seen it.
And then the second one was "More of the night he came home."
Stop this.
But then the tagline for the third film is "The night no one came home."
That's dope.
That's fucking awesome.
Although it kind of emphasizes the main quote unquote problem with your movie. The night that doesn't have the reason people watch these movies in it.
Yeah. But it's because not only is it saying Michael Myers isn't in it, but it's the whole thing of your kids aren't coming home tonight because they're going to die.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, that's cool.
It's such a fucking cool tagline. And then the tagline for the fourth one was 10 years ago, he changed the face of Halloween. Tonight, he's back. And then we just get into shitty horror things. So,
all right.
Time to continue the franchise. John Carpenter has said that the 2018 one is the last Halloween film. However, they are contractually obligated to make a sequel, and the writers do have ideas for it. They originally pitched 2 films, but they were like, we'll see if the first one works before we, don't want to count our chickens before their eggs in the basket.
Yeah, I don't know. I walked out of Halloween 2018 being like, I never want to see another Halloween movie again. It's so definitive to me that I feel like to cheapen it by having him come back would be so lame. Do a sequel to Season of the Witch.
But then they do kill him in the least efficient way possible by burning a house down around him, and we don't see him die. We don't see a body. And it's
yeah, I know, and that's what I'm saying. They should have shown that. It's annoying they didn't.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have watched a close-up of Michael Myers' mask melting around his face and just seeing his face burn up. That would have been so dope.
Well, even just he's right there on the stairs, why not just shoot him in the head and let his body burn?
Yeah.
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 What'd you make of the last shot as well?
What was it?
So they're driving away, the 3 generations of Strode woman, and the house is burning down. Michael's trapped in the basement, and the daughter is holding the bloody knife, and it freezes and kind of just zooms in on the knife.
I don't know. Is it implicating that shit's gonna go down again or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. It's now they're prepared for the next time, or yeah.
You know what? This Halloween 2018 was the movie we needed in 2018, though, wasn't it? A movie about 3 strong, powerful women who take down a male abuser. Maybe that's what it was doing.
Yeah.
It was being hurrah, they did it.
Yeah, from a franchise that was once produced by the Weinsteins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, AJ, do you have your... Well, I mean, I'm going to go my continue the franchise first because you've ruined it. So, yeah, I was going to pitch a sequel to Season of the Witch.
Yeah.
But you've made fun of how dumb of an idea that would be twice already.
Well, change my mind.
Well, I don't know. I was hoping we could like collaborate on it because I couldn't really think of what to do. But I would do like it's set, 40 years later, whatever, and 40 years ago, millions of children died watching this commercial. And I mean, you'd have to do some kind of like, it's back sort of thing. But yeah, how the world would have changed if there was this giant like cull of the population. Like it's like a reverse baby boomer. There'll be this generation that has like very few people because they were, and so now seeing these people that are protagonist age that are the ones that survived this cull.
Dude, that's a better idea than what I've got, man. You think I'm making fun of it? My idea is the stupidest thing out. Don't worry about it.
All right, well then, what's your stupid idea? But actually, do you know what? I was just fucking reading about Halloween as you do when you're doing research for a Halloween podcast, and there's a fucking trailer out for Halloween: Return of the Witch, which is like a fan film. Someone's made a feature length film. Someone's made that it's a sequel to Halloween 3. So.
All right. So this idea is a combination of what I thought H2O was, and me updating that to work as a sequel.
Right. So there's these three mermaids.
My movie is called H50, and it's 50 years later. So we got 10 years to make it. And in this movie, they are rebooting Halloween once again after the first film, but we take it. This is the one, well, not the one, but one of the sequel tropes missing from the Halloween franchise that we've seen in others, where there's no Michael Myers in space, and there's no super funny meta sequel that we get with like Scream and the like 7th Hellraiser film. So this one's set in the real world, or the same canon as Season of the Witch, I guess, if you want. Except children didn't die in this one, so maybe not.
Dude, we can combine our sequels.
It's 50 years since the original Halloween, and they've got Jamie Lee Curtis back on board to play another rebooted Laurie Strode, and she's like, I don't want to do this, like this is, whatever, but she's contractually obligated or whatever. But during this time, there's a guy named Michael Myers in real life whose whole life has been ruined by the fact that he shares a name not only with Mike Myers, but with this famous serial killer from the Halloween films. And like a publicity stunt for the new H50 movie, they actually cast Mike Myers in it as like a gag, but unfortunately he doesn't.
Myers?
Mike Myers is in the film.
Shrek, Mike Myers.
Yeah, Austin Powers, Mike Myers is in the film. So they can't actually shoot with him though, because unfortunately 2 days before he's scheduled to shoot, Mike Myers is unfortunately horrifically murdered. And he's murdered by the real life Michael Myers, who then shows up on the set and starts murdering off all the different people on set because they ruined his life by him being named after the character, and everyone always made fun of him. So he's killing everyone named Mike Myers. Well, so I guess he could kill all the.
Right, and this is what
I thought H20 was about Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't know why. I thought that the movie was like set in I was planning to come into this podcast and be like, does this mean that Halloween 3 Season of the Witch and H2O are the same canon? Because they're both in both movies. Halloween is a movie, but that's not. I don't know why I thought that's what H2O was about, but that's what I thought it was about.
Because you got like New Nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. There's another example. I want to make the new Nightmare of the Halloween franchise. So what do you think of that idea? That's pretty dumb, eh?
Yes. It's pretty fucking dumb. It is a dumb idea.
Thank you.
It's a really dumb idea.
I've started aiming for dumb ideas so you don't hurt my feelings when you say my good ideas are dumb.
I like that this film didn't go to space, but the name Michael Myers comes from, it was the European distributor for Assault on Precinct 13.
All right.
And John Carpenter was like, you know what? That guy did me a solid. I'm gonna do him a solid. Didn't name this character after him.
Well, he's the character then, who goes and murders Mike Myers
Yeah. All I did was fucking distribute Assault on Precinct 13 and in Europe, and now this is what I have to deal with.
Well, good stuff.
All right.
I think we need to hightail it out of here. I've got a game of Catan to get to.
I've got a pulled pork waiting in a slow cooker across town with my name on it.
So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in to this very, very long episode. Again, this isn't one I expected newcomers to listen to, so no harm, no foul. We are doing the next episode we're doing is a Patreon voted episode. So next film franchise Fortnights, we are doing as voted by you, the listener. And I don't know why I'm looking for it because I know what the answer is.
Yeah, it's Final Destination.
It's Final Destination, with a shocking 10 votes on the Patreon for that film.
Jesus.
Look, if you guys are all right, we're pretty drained on like violent horror slasher movies, but I guess we're doing another one. No, but we'll have all this time to recoup, and we don't even have to start watching them for like a week anyway because there's only 5. So we'll be doing that next fortnight. Next week we'll be doing the state of Sony and talking about the Marvel Spider-Man Sony characters universe and how that's going wrong or right, whatever. And I thought we could also, the next one maybe after that, after Final Destination, we can do one mega fan mail read episode because we got quite backed up. A lot of fan mail that episodes are getting too long to read that out on. So that could be an option. But other than that, find us on Facebook, find us on Patreon. For as little as $1, you too can suggest and vote for a franchise for us to cover. And you also get, if you pay $5 to $10, you get 2 exclusive podcasts a month. One where we look at recent additions to franchises we've already covered, and one where we watch just any movie that you voted on. So check that out if you like. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and you can email us at cultpoptionmedia@gmail.com. We just released a video that's doing really well about comedy, meta-comedy in film, so
where did that just appear?
Yeah, it got reposted by the AV Club, which is kind of a new thing for us that's never happened to us before, so please go check that out. I've been AJ, and I'm sorry to be pulling the plug and not giving you like a delicate, nice ending. I'm just really concerned that people aren't going to listen to a 3-hour podcast.
And I've been Richard, and I don't give a fuck about your time because whatever, if you're driving while listening to this, you've just got more content for your drives.
I love long podcasts, but I understand that maybe others.
Personally, I don't like podcasts. I don't listen to them. Who wants to listen to just some fucking dudes just yabber on for like 3 hours? Nobody cares.
All right, goodbye.